It happens suddenly, usually at the most mundane moment. You're standing in line at Starbucks, or stuck in traffic on I-5, or simply brushing your teeth on a Tuesday morning, looking in the mirror. And suddenly, reality glitches. For a fraction of a second, the world loses its solidity. The surrounding noise, the barista's chatter, the hum of cars, the sound of water from the tap, transforms into a meaningless jumble of frequencies. The script of your life, which seemed so logical just a minute ago, school, college, work, mortgage, a vacation in Florida, suddenly crumbles into dust. You feel a strange dizziness, not physical, metaphysical, as if the camera filming your life abruptly pulled back, and you saw that the scenery was made of cardboard. Do something right now. If you're in a safe place, raise your hand. Look at it. Not just a glance. Really look. Look at the lines on your palm, the texture of your skin, how your joints bend, the strange lump of flesh and bone that, for some reason, you can control. If you look long enough, something unsettling will happen. The word hand will disappear. The concept of my body part will dissolve. You'll see just an object, a strange biological crab attached to your torso. It will seem alien to you, grotesque, superfluous. Psychologists call this feeling jamais vu, the opposite of déjà vu. It's when something familiar suddenly becomes utterly, frighteningly unfamiliar. In 1938, French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre wrote a novel he titled Nausea. His protagonist, Antoine Roquentin, experiences exactly the same thing. He sits in a park and looks at the root of a chestnut tree, and suddenly the word root disappears. The categories of tree, plant, park vanish. He sees simply a black, gnarled, terrifying mass of existence, bare being, without labels, without meaning, without purpose. And he begins to feel nauseous, not in his stomach. He feels nauseous from the very fact of existence. We, modern people, often confuse this feeling with depression or burnout. We go to a therapist and say, "Doctor, I feel like a robot. I feel like an NPC, a non-player character in someone else's game. I go to work, move numbers from one spreadsheet to another, buy food, eat, sleep, and I don't understand. Why?" We are prescribed pills. We are advised to take a vacation, do yoga, or download a meditation app. But Sartre would say that pills won't help here, because you are not sick. On the contrary, in this moment of terror, you are perhaps, for the only time in your life, completely healthy. You've woken up. The filters your brain built for years to protect you from the truth have collapsed. You've seen the world as it truly is, chaotic, formless, and utterly indifferent to your weekend plans. This is an existential crisis. It's not teenage angst, and it's not a midlife crisis where you buy a red convertible to feel the wind in your hair. It's a fundamental breakdown of perception. It's the moment you ask, why, and realize with horror that there is no answer. No one sent you instructions at birth. There is no giant screenwriter in the sky who wrote a hero's role for you. You are just here, thrown into this world without reason, and you will have to stay here until the end, without any guarantees. For most people, this discovery becomes a source of panic attacks. We build walls of routine to hide from this emptiness. We scroll through news feeds to drown out the silence. We surround ourselves with things, brands, and statuses to give ourselves weight. But there is another way, a path proposed by thinkers who sat in smoke-filled Parisian cafes in the mid-20th century. They didn't suggest turning away from the abyss. They suggested jumping into it. But before we learn to swim in this void, we need to meet the one who created it. We need to talk to the universe and find out why it remains so stubbornly silent when we scream. If you had met Albert Camus in Paris in the 1940s, you would hardly have thought you were in the presence of a great philosopher. He didn't look like an old professor in a tweed jacket covered in chalk dust. He looked like Humphrey Bogart. Collared coat turned up, cigarette in the corner of his mouth, the gaze of a man who knows too much but won't tell anyone. Camus wasn't interested in complex academic systems. He was interested in one, but the most crucial, problem: the problem of the absurd. We often use the word absurd when we talk about something silly or ridiculous. Gas prices are absurd. This law is absurd. But for Camus, it was a strict philosophical term. It's not a quality of the world, and it's not a quality of man. The absurd is the result of a clash. Imagine an equation. On one side, there is you, a human being, a creature obsessed with finding meaning. We are meaning-making machines. We look for patterns in clouds. We seek cause and effect relationships in history. We want to know that good deeds will be rewarded and villains punished. We cry out to the sky, "Why am I here? What is my purpose? Please answer me." On the other side of the equation is the universe. Cold, giant, irrational, and what's most terrifying, absolutely mute. The absurd is born the moment our desperate cry for meaning meets the world's icy silence. Think of it as the worst date in history. Imagine you are madly in love. You prepare. You buy the best suit. You get a huge bouquet of roses. You write poems. You arrive at the restaurant, sit at the table, and begin to pour out your heart. You talk about love, about the future, about how important your relationship is. And opposite you sits a stone, or a chair, or emptiness. Your partner isn't evil. They don't hate you. If the universe hated us, that would even be pleasant. It would mean we are important to it, that we are worthy of its wrath. But it's much worse. It doesn't care. The universe doesn't know you exist. It doesn't care about your morals. A tsunami doesn't choose sinners to drown them. A virus doesn't check your bank account or the number of good deeds before killing you. The sun shines equally brightly on a wedding and on the scene of a bloody crime. For the human ego, this is unbearable. We grew up on stories where the protagonist is always important, where there is always a moral at the end. But Camus says, face the truth. There is no morality written in the stars. There is no grand plan. You are a random spark of consciousness in an infinite, dark, indifferent night. This realization brings a deep sense of orphanhood. We feel like strangers in our own home. In his famous novel, The Stranger, Camus' protagonist, Meursault, commits murder not out of anger or revenge, but simply because the sun on the beach was shining too brightly. This is a world devoid of human logic, a world of pure, chaotic fact. And here we come to a crossroads. When you realize that the universe will never reciprocate your feelings, that it will never tell you, "Well done," or "This is your path," you have two choices. The first is to break down, to invent an illusion, to hide in a religion or ideology that will lie to you that there is a plan after all. Camus called this philosophical suicide. You kill your mind to soothe your heart. The second option is to accept this horror, to admit that life has no inherent meaning. But if life has no meaning, if we are just a biological accident that will disappear without a trace, then the only logical, cruel, and inevitable question arises. The question with which any honest philosophy must begin. There is only one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. Albert Camus didn't like long introductions. He went straight for the gut punch. In his essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, he dismissed all other problems. Whether the universe is knowable, whether God exists, how many dimensions there are in space. All of these are mind games. The only question that matters is, if life has no meaning, is it worth living? This is a brutal logic. Imagine you got a job. You were told to dig a hole. You dig it all day. In the evening, your boss comes, makes you fill the hole back in, and doesn't pay you a cent, and says, "Come back tomorrow and do the same thing." How long would you stay at that job? A day? 2? Camus says that our life is exactly such a job. We get up, eat, work, sleep, grow old, and die. And at the end, darkness. No salary, no final bonus, absolute zero. If you are honest with yourself and accept the absurd, then suicide seems like the most logical way out. It's a way to tell the universe, "You can't fire me. I quit myself." To illustrate this horror, Camus takes an ancient Greek myth, the story of Sisyphus. Sisyphus was a cunning king who tricked the gods and even chained death itself. For this audacity, the gods devised the perfect punishment for him. Not a fiery lake, not torture. They devised meaningless labor. Sisyphus had to roll a massive boulder up a mountain. He strained every muscle, his face covered in dust, sweat stinging his eyes. He pushed the boulder centimeter by centimeter. Hours, days, years passed. And then, just as the summit was within reach, the stone would slip, and with a crash, it would roll back down to the base. And Sisyphus had to descend and start all over again. Eternity. The gods believed there was no punishment more terrible than useless work without hope of result. And let's be honest, Sisyphus is you. The stone is your alarm clock at 6:30 a.m. The stone is the mountain of dirty dishes that accumulates every day, no matter how much you wash them. The stone is the reports that no one reads. The stone is your attempts to build relationships that fall apart. We push the stone up, it falls. We push again, until our heart stops. Sounds like a death sentence, doesn't it? Camus' own life ended as absurdly as it began. There's a dark irony in it that no screenwriter could have invented. On January 4th, 1960, Albert Camus was supposed to take a train to Paris. He had already bought a ticket. It was in his coat pocket. But at the last minute, his friend and publisher, Michel Gallimard offered to drive. Camus agreed. On an empty, straight road, with no other cars or sharp turns, the car swerved off the road and crashed into a plane tree. Camus died instantly. In his pocket, they found that unused train ticket. As if the universe decided to put a definitive end to their dispute. You were looking for meaning? Here's your meaning. Chance, chaos, metal and wood. But here's the main twist. Despite all this, Camus reaches a conclusion that is shocking. He says, no. Suicide is not the answer. Suicide is a defeat. It's an admission that the absurd has won. He asks us to look at Sisyphus at that specific moment when the stone has already fallen and the hero is walking down the slope after it. In this pause, as he descends to his torment, Sisyphus is stronger than his stone. He knows his fate. He has no hope that the gods will forgive him. He has no hope that the stone will one day remain at the top. But he still goes after it. He makes a choice. He accepts his stone. He says, "This is my stone. This is my mountain. And I will push it not because I hope for salvation, but out of spite for all of you." In this act of stubbornness, a strange, wild freedom is born. The freedom of a person who has nothing to lose. Camus ends his essay with a sentence that sends shivers down your spine. The struggle itself toward the summits is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Happy. Not because life has become easy, but because he stopped looking for meaning externally and created it internally, through his rebellion. Camus teaches us to say yes to life, even when it screams no at us. So, we've decided not to pull the trigger. We've decided to stay in this absurd world and push our stone. But who are we while we're pushing it? Who determines how exactly we should do it? Here, Camus' friend enters the conversation. A small man with large glasses and a squint, who gave us the sharpest tool for self-discovery. Imagine you're sitting in Les Deux Magots, a Parisian café, across from Jean-Paul Sartre. He smokes a lot, talks quickly, and at some point grabs an ordinary letter opener from the table. In those days, letters were sealed thoroughly, and such a knife was everywhere. Sartre asks you, "What is this?" You reply, "It's a letter opener." Sartre nods. But why does this object exist? It exists because someone had a need to cut paper. A craftsman envisioned this knife in their mind. They drew a blueprint. They chose the metal, the wood for the handle. They knew what the knife would do even before the knife came into existence. In philosophy, this is called essence. Essence is a set of characteristics, a purpose, an instruction manual. For a knife, essence precedes existence. First the idea, then the object. This rule applies to everything created by humans. Your toaster, your car, your iPhone. They all have a purpose conceived by engineers in Cupertino or Detroit even before they were assembled on the production line. If you try to use a toaster as a boat, it will sink. It's a bad toaster because it violates its essence. For millennia, people believed that we were no different from this knife. We believed there was a great craftsman, God, who conceived each of us. He had a blueprint. Here's John. John will be a farmer. He will be kind. He will have 3 children. Or, here's Mary. She has a destiny. In this worldview, it's comfortable to live. Even if it's hard, it's part of the plan. You have instructions. You're like IKEA furniture. You just follow the steps and you assemble a correct life. But Sartre was an atheist, and he asked a question that blows up this cozy scheme. What if there is no God? If there is no God, then there is no great craftsman, no blueprint, no concept of man in a heavenly office. And then the rule is reversed. For man, and only for man, existence precedes essence. Think about that. This is the main formula of existentialism. 3 words that change everything. First, you appear. You materialize in this world. You are thrown into being. You cry, you breathe, you blink. You exist. But you are nobody. You have no definition, no predetermined destiny, no character set by the stars, no calling. You are an emptiness that fills itself. This means you are the only object in the universe that comes without an instruction manual. You are not a letter opener. You cannot say, "I was born to be an accountant," or "I was made to suffer." No. You became an accountant because you chose to go to college and take that job. You suffer because you chose reactions that lead to suffering. Sartre tells us, man is a project. We are constantly sketching ourselves onto the canvas of the future. Every action you take is a brushstroke. Drank coffee? A stroke. Lied to a friend? A stroke. Went to a protest? A stroke. At the end of your life, your essence will be complete. It will be the sum of all your actions. Only on your tombstone will it be possible to write, "He was a coward," or "She was a hero." As long as you are alive, you are neither. You are in the process of creation. This sounds incredibly inspiring, doesn't it? Absolute power. You're not an NPC. You're not just a player. You're the game developer. You can rewrite your character's code at any second. Right now, you can get up, leave the room, and start a different life. The past doesn't exist. It doesn't hold you. You are free. But wait to pop the champagne. This coin has a flip side, and it's so heavy it can crush you. If there's no blueprint, if there's no God, if there's no destiny, then there are no excuses. If you're a failure, it's your fault. If you're lonely, it's your choice. You have no one to blame. You can't say, "That's just my nature," or "That's how things turned out." Sartre calls this a curse. Sartre used a very specific word when describing our condition. He did not say that man is blessed with freedom or gifted with it. He said, man is condemned to be free. Condemned. Just as a criminal is sentenced to a prison term, we are sentenced to freedom. Sounds strange, doesn't it? We are used to seeing freedom as something positive. Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, the Statue of Liberty in New York. Freedom in advertising is running on a beach with flowing hair. But existential freedom is not a beach. It is an abyss. Søren Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher who was the grandfather of existentialism, described this feeling best. He called it the dizziness of freedom. Imagine you are standing on the edge of a high cliff. You look down into the abyss. You experience 2 feelings. The first is fear. Fear that you might slip, lose your balance, and fall. This is self-preservation instinct. But there is also a second feeling, darker, stickier, a strange desire, anxiety. Anxiety arises not from the possibility of accidentally falling, but from the realization that you can jump. Nothing holds you back. No railing, no God to grab your hand, no physical law that would prevent your muscles from tensing and taking a step forward. Your fate in the next second depends only on you. And this absolute possibility of doing something terrible, irreparable, that's what causes the dizziness. In that moment, you realize that you are the sole author of your future. And that's not inspiring. It's terrifying. But in the 21st century, we don't need to stand on a cliff to feel this. We just need to go into a typical American supermarket. Let's go to Walmart or Whole Foods. To the cereal aisle. You stand in front of the shelf. Before you are 50 kinds of cereal. Honey Nut Cheerios, Frosted Flakes, organic gluten-free granola, keto cereal, chocolate cereal, fiber cereal. You just want breakfast. But you stand there for 10 minutes. You read the ingredients. You compare prices. You think, if I buy the sweet ones, I'll be a bad parent or get fat. If I buy organic, I'll spend an extra $5. Your brain freezes. Psychologists call this choice paralysis. Why is it so difficult? Because in a world where existence precedes essence, even choosing a box of cereal becomes an act of self-definition. You're not just buying food. You're constructing your identity. I am the kind of person who eats healthy food. Or, I am the one who saves money. Every choice cuts off millions of other possibilities. By choosing one path, you kill all the others. And you bear the responsibility for that. Sartre goes even further. He says our responsibility is even more terrifying. When you make a choice, any choice, you are essentially declaring, this is how every person in my situation should act. By choosing something, you affirm the value of that choice for all humanity. If you decide to get married, you vote for the institution of marriage. If you decide to cheat, you create a world where cheating is the norm. You are not just living your small life. You carry the whole world on your shoulders. Without excuses. Without the possibility of saying, I was ordered to, or it just happened. This is monstrous pressure. Sartre called this angoisse, existential anxiety. It's the feeling when you realize the steering wheel is in your hands, but you don't know the map, the brakes don't work, and the passengers in the back are all of humanity. No wonder we want to escape. Freedom is too heavy for our shoulders. We dream of becoming a thing again. We want to become a letter opener. We want someone to come and tell us, do this and everything will be fine. We want to get rid of the authorship of our lives. And to do this, we resort to the most common survival strategy. We start lying to ourselves. Imagine you are an actor. You go on stage and you are given a role. And you play that role. You are the good father, the effective manager, the patriot of your country. You play so well that you begin to believe that you are this character. You forget that it's a role. You forget that you have a choice to play it differently or to leave the stage altogether. This is bad faith, mauvaise foi. It is self-deception. It is the renunciation of one's freedom and responsibility for the comfort of an illusion. Sartre used a very vivid example. He spoke of a waiter in a cafe. This waiter, Jean, plays his role too well. He moves too quickly. His smile is too wide. He speaks too obsequiously. What does my master desire? He performs every movement with exaggerated precision, as if he were a living caricature of a waiter. Why does he do this? He is trying to prove something. To himself? To the customers? To the universe? He is trying to prove that he truly is a waiter, that he is not just a person who works as a waiter, but that his essence is to be a waiter, and that he cannot be anyone else. He plays the role so diligently to stifle another thought within himself, the thought that he could be anyone. He could be a writer, a musician, or simply sit at a table and drink coffee. He renounces his freedom because being a waiter is simple. It's predictable. It relieves him of the burden of choice. He doesn't have to think about who he wants to be. He is a waiter. Period. This bad faith permeates our lives. I can't quit this job because I need the money. Can't you? Or are you just afraid of the uncertainty that will come with quitting? You choose a stable job that kills you instead of freedom that frightens you. But you refuse to admit that it's your choice. I have to do this because my parents, boss, society say so. This is classic bad faith. You shift responsibility onto external forces. You turn yourself into a puppet, although in reality, you could say no. But you are afraid of the consequences, and to avoid that fear, you tell yourself you have no choice. The most horrifying example of bad faith was heard not in a Parisian cafe, but at the Nuremberg trials. When Nazi criminals were asked why they killed people, sent them to camps, they replied, "I was just following orders. I was a soldier. I had no choice." They tried to hide behind their role, the role of an executor. They denied their freedom and their responsibility for their actions. They claimed they were victims of circumstances. But Sartre would say, "No, you chose. Every time you pulled the trigger, you chose to be a murderer. You chose to obey an order instead of saying no." Bad faith is the lie we tell ourselves to avoid the fear of freedom, the fear of responsibility, the fear of loneliness in the face of the absurd. We tell ourselves, "I'm just that kind of person. I can't help it." Refusal to acknowledge that you change every day. It's always been this way. Refusal of innovation and seeking new paths. I just have bad luck. Refusal to take an active role in your life. This lie offers temporary relief. It lifts a burden from us. But it also deprives us of the most important thing. It deprives us of ourselves. It makes us characters, not authors. It turns us into waiters who play their role too diligently. But we are not waiters. We are human beings, and that means we are free, and we can stop lying. But there's a catch. We can lie to ourselves because no one sees us from the inside. But as soon as we are in plain sight, as soon as others start judging us, the situation becomes much more complicated. L'enfer, c'est les autres. Hell is other people. You've probably seen this quote on t-shirts, in statuses, or heard it in sitcoms. Usually, we understand it as, "People annoy me. My neighbors are idiots. My boss is a tyrant. Traffic is terrible. How nice it would be if everyone disappeared." But Jean-Paul Sartre didn't mean that people are simply annoying. He meant something much more terrifying. something that turns your life into an eternal torment, even if no one is hitting or insulting you. He was talking about the look. Imagine you're walking in a park early in the morning. You are alone. At that moment, you are the king of the world. Trees exist because you look at them. The bench is there because you can sit on it. The world is organized around your consciousness. You are the subject, the center of the universe. But suddenly, another person appears on the path. Instantly, disaster strikes. The world stops revolving around you. The trees are now visible to them too. The bench is now a potential spot for them. Your universe cracks. The world, as it were, leaks from you to them. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is, you realize they are looking at you. Under their gaze, you cease to be the king. You become the man in the park, the strange guy, an object. They judge you. They evaluate your clothes, your gait. You lose your freedom and become a character in their movie. To understand the mechanics of this horror, let's use Sartre's famous thought experiment. Imagine you're walking down a hotel corridor. You hear strange sounds from one room. You are driven by jealousy or simply wild curiosity. You kneel down and press your eye to the keyhole. At that moment, you are absolutely free. You are pure gaze. You don't think about yourself. You don't think, I'm kneeling, I'm uncomfortable. Your self has dissolved. You are the action. You are completely absorbed in what's happening in the room. You are God, observing while remaining invisible. But suddenly, a floorboard creaks at the end of the corridor. Footsteps. Someone is coming. Someone sees you. Instantly, in a fraction of a second, your universe collapses. A hot wave of shame hits your head. You are no longer the observer. You are the peeping Tom. You are the pervert. You are the pathetic loser on his knees. That person in the corridor didn't even say anything. They just looked. But their gaze pinned you to the wall like a butterfly with a pin. They defined you. They stole your freedom to be nobody and turned you into a specific, dirty something. Shame is the recognition that I am indeed the object that the other sees me as. In Sartre's play No Exit, 3 sinners end up in hell. There are no frying pans, no devils with pitchforks. There's just an ordinary Second Empire-style room, and 3 people locked in there forever. And there are no mirrors. This is a brilliant detail. They cannot see themselves. To know how they look, if they have a spot on their face, they must ask another. They are completely dependent on the neighbor's gaze. "Do I look okay?" you ask. And the neighbor replies, "You look pathetic." And you have no way to check. You become a slave to their opinion. In 2025, we have built this hell on a global scale. Social media is a machine for producing the look. We voluntarily live in a panopticon. We post photos not to remember the moment, but to get confirmation of our existence from others. If you didn't get likes, then the event didn't happen. If others didn't approve of your outfit, then you look bad. We have handed the keys to our self-esteem to a crowd of strangers. Cancel culture is the final stage of objectification. The crowd looks at a person and says, "You are a racist," or "You are a Karen," or "You are toxic." That's it. Your complexity, your fears, your history, your attempts to become better, all of it is erased. You are turned into a label. You are an object of wrath. You are frozen in one moment, in one unfortunate tweet. You are deprived of the right to change, meaning you are deprived of the right to humanity. The gaze of the other paralyzes. We are afraid to take a step because we think, what will they say? We don't dance because we're afraid of looking foolish. We don't express our opinion because we're afraid of being canceled. We live in hell because we allowed others to be the architects of our reality. We are caught in a vice. On one side, a cold, indifferent universe that is silent, as we found with Camus. On the other side, a noisy, judgmental crowd that tries to turn us into things. It seems there's no way out. The door is locked. But Camus and Sartre wouldn't leave us to rot here. They found the key. A key that is in your pocket, but you are afraid to use it. This key is called rebellion. The art of being free in prison. So we are trapped. Above, an empty sky that remains silent to our prayers. Around us, people who try to label us and turn us into functions. Inside, fear of responsibility. It seems the game is lost. But it is at this point of absolute despair that existentialism performs a somersault. It turns defeat into triumph. Camus calls this rebellion. This is not a rebellion with Molotov cocktails in the streets. This is a metaphysical rebellion. It is an internal uprising against the conditions of our existence. If the universe has no meaning, we will not cry in a corner. We will not invent fairy tales to comfort ourselves. We will tell the universe, okay, you are empty, you are cold, you are meaningless. But I exist. I am here. And I will create meaning out of spite for you. This is true punk rock philosophy. A life without inherent meaning is not a curse. It's a blank check. It's an empty canvas on which you can paint any amount. Most people make the same mistake. They search for the meaning of life as if it were a hidden Easter egg,
as if somewhere under a rock, or in an old book, or on a mountaintop in Tibet, there's a note that says, "Your purpose is to grow hydrangeas." And if they search hard enough, they'll find it. Sartre laughs at this. Meaning is not found. Meaning is created. You are not an archaeologist digging up ancient ruins. You are an artist standing before an absolutely white, frighteningly empty canvas. There is no right painting you should paint. There is no right way to live. If you draw a red line, that will be your meaning. If you pour a bucket of black paint, that will also be your meaning. The value of your action does not come from whether God or society approves of it. The value comes from the fact that you chose to do it. You invested your passion in it. This changes everything. Let's return to our friend Sisyphus. Remember, he rolls the stone and the stone falls. Meaningless? From an efficiency standpoint, yes. From a capitalist standpoint, it's a failure. But Camus tells us, look at him more closely. At the moment he presses his shoulder against the cold, rough stone, when he feels the tension in his muscles, when he smells the earth, he is alive. This stone is his. This mountain is his. This struggle belongs to him. He doesn't need a result. He doesn't need a medal at the top. The very process of life, the effort itself, the very feeling of I exist and I act, that is enough. Happiness is not a destination. Happiness is a way of travel. We are used to living for later. I'll be happy when I buy a house. I'll be happy when I get a promotion. We postpone life until later, turning the present into a waiting room. Existentialists shout at us,
There is no later. The stone will fall. You will die. All you have is now. This sip of coffee, this conversation, this wind on your face. To live absurdly is to live passionately. To live as if the stakes are maximal, even knowing that the casino always wins. You love not because it's, quote, eternal. You love because your heart is burning now. You create a project not because it will change the world for 1,000 years. You do it because you can't not do it. This frees us from the tyranny of success. If meaning is not in the result, but in the process, you cannot lose. As long as you continue to push your stone with a smile on your face, you conquer the absurd. You become more than your fate. You become the author. Yes, people will look. Yes, hell is other people. They will say, "Why is he doing that? It's stupid. There's no money in it." Let them talk. That's their way of dealing with the emptiness. They chose to be spectators. You chose to be a player. Your life is the only work of art you will truly create. The material resists. The stone is heavy. The canvas is frighteningly blank. But the brush is in your hands. And now that we understand that the brush is ours and no one will take it away, there's one last step, the hardest one. We need to stop talking about it. We need to go to the canvas and make the first stroke. In Greek, the word crisis, krisis, did not mean catastrophe. It meant decision, or turning point. In medicine, it was the moment when a disease reached its peak. The patient either died or began to recover. Your existential crisis is not a sign that you are broken. It's a sign that you are ready to recover. You are ready to stop being a child waiting for instructions and become an adult who writes them yourself. I want to give you one last paradoxical piece of advice. Give up hope. That sounds terrible, I know. We are used to considering hope a virtue. But in the context of existentialism, hope can be a poison. Hope is always about the future. Hope says, tomorrow will be better. One day I will find my calling. One day a Savior will come. Hope steals your present. It makes you endure the unbearable today for a fabricated tomorrow. Camus suggested living without hope, but not in despair, but in the full, ringing clarity of the present moment. When you kill the hope that meaning will fall from the sky, your hands are freed to create that meaning yourself. Look at your life right now. Not the one you post on Instagram, but the real one, with dirty dishes, debts, doubts, and fears. This is your material. This is your clay. It may be rough, it may be dirty, but it's yours. No one else in the universe has this exact set of circumstances. You might say, "But I don't know what to do." Sartre would reply, "Invent." You won't find the answer in books. You won't find it in this video. You will only find it in action. The meaning of life is not a noun. It's a verb. Meaning arises only when you do something. Plant a flower, write code, help a neighbor carry a bag. Say no to a tyrant. Say, "I love you" to someone who is waiting for it. In that moment, in the moment of action, the absurd recedes. Chaos is ordered around your action. You become a small god of your own tiny universe. Yes, the universe is vast and cold. Yes, we will all die. Yes, in 100 years our names will be forgotten. So what? Does a sunset become less beautiful because it only lasts 10 minutes? Does a song become worse because it ends? The finiteness of life is what gives it beauty. The absence of inherent meaning is what gives us freedom. You stand before a blank canvas. Your hands are trembling. That's normal. That's the dizziness of freedom. It means you are alive. And here is the most important, most terrifying, and most beautiful news you can hear. No one is coming to save you. No one will descend from the heavens to give you a medal. The government will not solve your problems. Parents cannot live your life for you. Internet gurus don't have the answers. You are absolutely, totally, delightfully alone at the helm. For some, this is a cause for depression. But I hope that after this hour spent together, for you, it will sound like a fanfare.
Because if no one is coming to save you,
Then no one is coming to stop you either.
the jailer is gone. The door is open. The key was always in your pocket.
The screen will now go dark. You will be left in silence. Don't turn on the next video. Sit in this silence for 1 minute. Feel the weight of your body. Feel your heart beating. And then get up and go push your stone. But do it with a smile, because it's your stone.